Greetings, beloved Princeton United Methodist Church community. It's Pastor Jenny here. I'm actually at the church in the library. I'm doing a training today, and so decided to come and do this video from here. I'm starting with scripture as usual. Today it's in Luke chapter 15, verses 31 and 32. This is part of the very end of the parable we know as the prodigal son. Then the father said to him, the oldest son, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found." This is the word of life. Thanks be to God. So we are in the midst of our series on broken things, and this week we're talking about how we are broken in our relationship with God, how our relationship with God is broken. And I worked with a pastor early in my ministry who always said something like this. He said it in a more pithy way, but this is essentially what he said. If you are discovering that your relationship with God is not as close as it once was, you can be sure which one of you has moved. In other words, God never moves. God is always there. We always have access to God. We always have get to dwell in God's house. I love to say that God is closer to us than our breath. God delights in us. And yet we struggle so much to believe that, to feel it, to experience it, to live as if it's true. This is the fundamental brokenness. This is the core. If this were not broken in us, if this relationship, if this knowledge were not broken, then we really wouldn't be broken in other ways. It would all be whole. And that's hard to digest and see. But I also say this not trying to heap guilt or shame upon you, because this is also just fundamentally hard. There's not a human being in the history of human beings, except maybe Jesus, who didn't struggle with this. And really, I think even Jesus did, as we see in the Garden of Gethsemane, as we see in the wilderness, as we see him wrestling with his own belovedness, working to truly understand and digest and live into that. And if he struggled with that, then we all are going to. So this is just another invitation for us to take a look at the broken pieces. Where do we struggle with letting God love us? Where do we struggle believing that we are beloved, that we are enough? Where do we push God away or choose to complain and grumble and do things like this older brother does instead of rejoice? Where do we wander away like the younger brother does and just refuse to be in God's house at all? I also know that for some of us, just even believing in a God or believing that God is truly right there, always delighting in us, wanting us to come home, ready to receive us with open arms, is nearly impossible. So I invite you too, that as you were looking at these broken pieces, that if you are struggling to even have an image of God or a faith in a God who is like this, if your primary images of God or something else of a kind that does bring shame and guilt or fear, then I invite you to ask, to talk, to keep exploring, and to see if God might be inviting you to have an even bigger vision of who God is, and a bigger understanding, a bigger relationship with the God that created us and redeems us and sustains us. So I just invite you to keep looking at these broken pieces. Where is your relationship with God in being called to more, being called to wholeness, being called to closer, being called to be something closer than what it is. And there is help out there. You can talk to me or the other pastors, other staff people, other leaders, other people who you see having a faith that you would like to learn something from. It's all good, and this is our journey. The whole thing is this right here. So this Sunday we're having communion. Hey Lim Yoon, our intern, is preaching, but we're also having communion. I'll be presiding at that, and so I invite you to get stuff ready ahead of time, and know that communion even is a chance to look at and receive help putting together these broken things. It's an invitation from God to dine, to be a companion, to break bread with the one who created us. It's quite amazing, truly. And so we're going to do that. It's also communion. Because it's Communion Sunday, we also have a communion offering. It's Core Sunday. That's the United Methodist Committee on Relief. This is our global arm of the United Methodist Church. One of my favorite things about our greater connection as a United Methodist Church, because these are the funds that help the United Methodist Church be wherever there is a natural or humanitarian disaster. We're often first on the scene. We're often last to leave. We do all sorts of things, from organizing people and local organizations to help bring stability long term, to just providing food and flood buckets and things that are needed right there in that emergency. So I encourage you to give. It's called One Great Hour of Sharing is another way that we call this United Methodist Core Sunday. So I commend that to you as well. We continue with Lent, of course, and so that also means we have our Tuesday worship services, our Tuesday prayer services. Rebecca Anderson led yesterday, and next week CK Carly Bartow, one of our interns, is leading. She's actually interning from Arkansas, and so she'll be leading worship from Arkansas as well. So you won't want to miss that. Remember that we have a Zoom lunch tea that comes along right after that, and it's good, it's enjoyable, it's something that can really continue to help us dig into these broken pieces more throughout Lent. I also want to remind you about our Lenten practice cards, and that you are always invited to come and do that online. We have a few ways we're doing it: on Facebook, on Instagram, but also on our online campus, which I hope you'll check out. There will be ways to do that in the rest of this email. I know you'll want to see that. Let's see, what else can I talk about? There is also an Easter egg hunt. Our children's and youth formation ministry team is putting together a virtual Easter egg hunt this year, and so registration is now open for that. We're also working on an intergenerational project, making a project out of broken things, and I know you'll want to participate in that as well. As we look forward, it's still a little ways away, it's still a month away, but as Holy Week does come, know that we're going to be opening the church up again during the day, during some of those days of Holy Week, and we invite you to come and participate and just be. I know many of you have missed being in our church, and while we still can't come for worship all together, which I'll talk about again in a second, this is a way that we are inviting you to come and just there's different energy inside of our church, and I know that matters, and just to be able to see and feel and be in this place, I hope that you will make some time and to come and do that during Holy Week. So I know that Governor Murphy, in part of his frequent proclamations, said that churches could open to 50% of capacity as long as we can maintain social distancing, and I've heard from several of you around that in different ways. And I want to name that the Governor Murphy has for many months now actually given religious institutions more leeway than other organizations and businesses. What's challenging about this, there are many things that are challenging about this, but is that there's nothing that makes being in a church more safe than being in any other kind of enclosed indoor space. In fact, being in a church doing the normal kinds of things that we do in worship actually makes that more dangerous as the COVID virus continues to spread and mutate. So we continue to talk about this a lot in our staff meetings and among our leadership, and we continue to know that we need to be virtual for now. We're trying to figure out when that will be able to be changed, but I want you to know some of the big factors. These really haven't changed over the months, but I wanted to at least name them again for you. One is truly safety, and trying to make sure that the most vulnerable people among us are safe, and that requires, as it usually does, sacrifice from the rest of us, and who are less vulnerable. And I know that with vaccines coming, it becomes even more challenging and confusing as we look at some of these different questions. But equity is also one of our goals here, our values. And it's trying to make sure that we can, when we do allow more people to come into worship, how do we do that in a way that gives access to people, balancing to all the people, even those who are less technologically adept or less able to come as easily, or any of these kinds of things. It's easy for some of us to come and feel like it's good and okay. But that's going to leave a bunch of people in our congregation out. And so we're really trying to balance a bunch of these things. And the third really big thing for us is around how we spend our energy. And for us, it continues to be clear that we need to spend our energy doing what we're doing. We are not sensing that to shift our energy to make it possible for people to come into our space safely, equitably, and in ways that really make the experience of what worship would be like in person together powerful and good and really higher quality than what you're getting now through our online worship. That balance hasn't shifted yet. And so we're going to continue what we're doing. And I know that's hard, and it's very challenging in so many ways. This doesn't mean we're going to do this forever. There's still so many questions about how life as a whole looks, and we are part of that mix. So that is what I wanted to share with you. The very last thing I wanted to share, kind of along these same lines, is General Conference, our global denominational gathering, supposed to happen in 2020. It was postponed to 2021, and now it's been postponed again to 2022. There's some information in this email about that. You can read more about it, but I just wanted you to at least know that had happened, because I know some of you have been watching and waiting and paying attention to what's happening at the global church level, and just needed you to know about that. Friends, there is much brokenness in this world. There is many broken pieces around all of us, but God is continuing to put us back together, to put things back together, and do it in ways that make a new creation out of us together, out of the world. Sometimes that's so hard to see, but it's impossible to truly see that new creation if we aren't also looking at the brokenness in ways that really take it seriously, that really see it for what it is. It's painful and it's freeing. It is enormously freeing. So continue to dig in with us during this time of looking at broken things, and let's see together too how God is putting us back together. Grace and peace to you all.